You got a couple of options, Steve. There are international entities, whether it's the United Nations, the World Health Organization, there's the International Court of Justice. There are actually treaties that govern the interactions between countries as it relates to infectious disease. But those are toothless. You've got American courts, but you got to get around the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. And then if you get around that, you got proof problems. I mean, how's an individual American supposed to get information from China when the rest of the world cannot? The Trump administration doesn't need to go to court to hold China accountable. You can hit them where it hurts the most. You can ostracize them on the world stage, quit letting their students come here and study. You can make them a pariah, but most importantly, you can start deducting the amount of money we owe them and other countries owe them, deduct our costs, including the loss of life. But all the other costs, start deducting that and then see what China's reaction is.
Yeah, well, that's one way to do it. But Congressman, so many people have been blaming China over the last couple of weeks. Hey, why didn't you tell us back in January what was actually going on? Because then the rest of the world would have had a heads up.
That's a great question. The issue I have is, where do we go to get the answer to that question? And if you go to the United Nations, China has veto. Remember the South China Seas, where we complained that China was building military bases on land they didn't own? We won in court, and China said, we don't care. So if they don't respect the international treaties and entities, and they're immune from suit in our courts, we don't have much of an option except administration to administration. I understand the president says he has a good relationship with the president of China. That's great. We should have no trouble getting compensation for the Americans that have lost their lives and lost their livelihoods if, in fact, we have a good relationship with them.
And so since then, since January, when China was hoarding all the stuff over there, this country has been scrambling to try to get more stuff. And last week, the president invoked the Defense Production Act and told 3M they got to make more stuff. Well, last night we heard from the president, and he said that has been solved. They are working with us, and they're going to come up with something like 167 million masks over the next 3 months. See, that's the way the Defense Production Act is supposed to work, and the president has judiciously only used it with corporations and companies who aren't cooperating with the country. It's like, you don't want to help us? All right, I'm going to have to play hardball.
Right. And I think the best remedy of all, Steve, is to no longer have to rely on that act. And the best way to not rely is for American manufacturers to make the things we need for our national security. So, I mean, you can argue that motorbikes and some other things are luxuries, but pharmaceuticals and protective gear are not luxuries. That is a national security issue. So maybe the answer is for the United States to be less dependent upon other countries for things that keep us from dying. That obviates the need to rely on an act. Then we don't have to ask anyone to do anything that they're not currently doing, because we're already making the stuff in this country. I think that's the long-term answer that comes out of this pandemic.